السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. How are you guys? Everyone good? وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله نقيب الله. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. Okay guys, so nice warm day today, sunny day. Well, not exactly warm here, but it's nice. It's a nice day today, sunny day. I don't know how the weather is in your areas. Maybe you can tell me what the weather was like. And وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله Zaid. So anyone got anything interesting to share? Any questions? Yeah, nice weather today, alhamdulillah. Today's they said that it was supposed to be quite cold today, starting to get cold. They said it's going to be for a week or something, I don't know, snowing or. But you can't trust the weatherman nowadays. And okay, so what tips would you give for someone going Hajj? Okay, what tips would you give for someone going Hajj? So what I would say is, when a person goes to Hajj, then they should always remember not to waste their time. A lot of people tend to go Hajj, waste their time over there. The main things to do in Hajj are tawaf, to do as much tawaf as you can. Pray in the Masjid al-Haram as much as you can. Read Quran there. Benefit from company of other good people as well. Learn about the place, because it's a time that you're not really going to be working as well, so you've got a lot of free time on your hands. Learn about things in Islam, learn how to read the Quran as well over there. There's people, when I went there, I remember I was reading Quran, and a guy next to me, he corrected so many of my mistakes, and he was actually a big Qari from Egypt who had an institute in Sri Lanka. So I asked him to listen to more of my Quran, and that way I'd improve my own. So you don't know who is sitting next to you over there. Benefit from them, learn from them. Do whatever you can so that you can benefit your time, and don't do things which are going to be useless. Like, you don't have to go shopping there. Yeah, I mean, go if you want to go shopping, do it in the last days, but don't waste too much time going shopping, because there's lots of big shops there, and people tend to spend a lot of time there and eat. I wouldn't advise eating, too much of this fast foods over there, because that will just make you lazy, slow you down, and you won't be able to focus on the main reason that you've come there. Because Hajj is all about Ibrahim alayhi salam sacrifices as well. So sometimes you got to sacrifice a bit in the days of Hajj, and complain as well. Some people complain about Hajj. Oh, they should make it like this. They should make it like this. It's only really recently since they've kind of changed a lot of things in Makkah, because if you think about it, in the past, you had a lot of difficulty there. The tents were not air conditioned. Hotels were not air conditioned. Masjid al-Haram, the ground was really hot. So it made things a lot easier now. So alhamdulillah, focus on what you want to do there as well. Maybe you can have a list. Sometimes you can get these apps which can tell you what things you can do, schedule your time as well. I remember when I went there, my mum used to, like, she used to go there in the morning after Fajr time. She used to go to the masjid, and she'd come back after Isha, and she'd take with herself some fruit or some dates, and all day she'd just spend. And that time she was learning Qaida, so she was reading like Alif Ba, and she just finds some lady over there and ask her, can she help her, and she'd benefit from her time. Okay, what's the knowledge for tonight? You tell me what the knowledge for tonight is. You can ask questions, and if I know the answer, I'll help you. If I don't know the answer, then I can't help you. Alright, what is the best thing to recite on the night of Mi'raj Sharif? The best thing to recite, there isn't anything specific to recite. Every day, just recite, at night time before you go to sleep, recite Surah Tabarak Alladhi if you can. Surah Al-Waqi'ah, Surah Tabarak Alladhi protects you from the adhab of the grave. It comes in a hadith. And Waqi'ah protects a person from poverty. And in the daytime, read Surah Yasin as well. So these are things that you can recite every day, not just any specific day. There isn't really anything with regards to Mi'raj, the night of Mi'raj. There's nothing specific that's been done by the Sahaba or the scholars in the past. You don't really find anything they used to do on that night. Okay, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. There are hadith in Muslim al-Shamail that the Prophet had such a thick long beard that it covered his chest. Yeah. But we, one fist. Okay, so the hadith actually differ. One thing you have to remember about Shama'il basically means like the biography of the Prophet ﷺ, or description of his attributes, his blessed attributes. So they would say, some Sahaba would say that his beard was thick, and some Sahaba would say that it would cover his chest, and some Sahaba would say that he used to trim it from the sides. So there's different observations, and obviously within the 23 years of his life, the size of his beard might have been very different. So when they say they used to cover his chest, what they would mean by that is not the full chest, it would cover the entire chest, because we know that the Prophet ﷺ would trim his beard as well, and Sahaba would, Ibn Umar would take a fist full of beard as well. So this is why sometimes in a narration, when you get something of that sort, you always have to remember it's an observation. It's not like telling you the exact definitions or the exact limits of the beard. So this is why we look at what the scholars said. So the scholars said that his beard was roughly the size of his fist. That's what they say, how they describe it. So that's the main thing to remember about these kind of narrations. That's the main kind of point to remember, that it's observation of other people. So different people, like for example, my beard, if like it covered my chest, the area that's open, of my shirt. So my beard covered my chest. That covered my chest as well. So maybe his shirt was slightly open, and the way he was sitting was you couldn't see his chest. Maybe it was like that. So it could be in different interpretations. Okay. Wassalam. Okay, but we Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Okay. Alaikum assalam. I wanted to know if taking a student loan is allowed and working in a bank with regards to interest. Okay, so this is a good question with regards to student loans. So student loans, there's many different types of student loans you can get. There's some that you can get interest free. There's some that have incurring interests. So if there is an interest and a loan that's incurring interest, what my advice would be is to speak to a scholar regarding your situation, because sometimes what happens is the scholar will look at your situation, he'll look at the issues that you've got, and he'll be able to give an answer according to your precise condition. But generally, the scholars generally say that taking such a loan is impermissible. Generally, it's not looking at each individual, and it should be avoided, and try to get some other means. And if a person can't get another means, then they should take the loan, but understand that this is out of necessity that they're taking it, because sometimes nowadays sometimes it's difficult to actually get any good job without university education, especially if you want to become a doctor or something. Okay, and working in a bank. So generally the rule is this: when again you speak to a scholar about your situation, ask them, and they'll be able to give you a refined answer. But generally, any sort of action, any sort of job which is directly involved with haram, like directly, not indirectly. For example, like if I got a shop and I'm selling, let's say, cutlery, forks, knives, things like that. Am I allowed to sell knives to people? So, what if someone says to me, but someone might use the knife to kill someone? So even though there is some sort of involvement, a guy might come to the shop, buy a knife of me, then later on go take it and kill someone. So am I responsible for that? So because I wasn't directly linked to that, in other words, he didn't come to me and say to me, give me a knife because I want to kill someone. If I gave him a knife then I'd be directly responsible. So this is why if a job in such a place is directly linked to that particular action, then you're not allowed to. So for example, in a bank in which there's interest being dealt with, if there's a job like, for example, maybe cashier or maybe the accountant of the bank or any manager, anything sort of thing that's directly involved, that generally would take the same ruling as the bank itself. But if it's a generic job like security guard, electrician, cleaner, some sort of job like that, then it would be technically, it wouldn't come under that first ruling, so it'd be permissible. Okay. Hope that answers the question. Are we allowed to take a mortgage? Again, are we allowed to take a mortgage? Again, this is a question which requires a person to speak to a scholar about their situation. There are some situations where people will be able to take, and generally the answer is that mortgage, if it's based upon interest, then dealing with interest and supporting an interest-based transaction would not be allowed. But like I said, again, you got to speak to a scholar about your situation, and I know that many people out there who have spoken to scholars and have been told that they can take it according to the situation. Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. What is a reasonable amount of money for a husband to give his wife during iddat period? This actually differs. What is the reasonable amount? It differs from woman to woman. So basically, he has to provide her with the things that she normally requires. Like for example, if you're living in, for example, a village in let's say India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, it'd be different. Or in Africa or in Arab countries, maybe in England or in the States, it'd be different according to what a woman normally requires. So for example, like food, clothing, shelter, maybe even mobile phone if it's needed, stuff like that. So you got to look at the situation. What does a woman normally require, and then that is what the husband should provide for her. Okay, did Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam have a shadow? Okay, there's differing narrations regarding the shadow of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or whether he had a shadow, whether he didn't have a shadow. So some narrations mention that he didn't, some say that he did. So if someone's itikaf becomes involved. Okay, assalamu alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. To ask how to limit sin and transform yourself into a good Muslim. Okay, one thing you have to remember about sin is we're never going to be free of sinning. Yeah, so people will always commit sins. That's how life is. There will always be sins in the world. People, you can't make yourself immune to sin. Not possible. Only angels are like that. And the prophets, they're free of sins. So we will commit sins. The thing is the main thing, when you commit a sin, turn back to Allah. That's the main thing. Every time you commit a sin, train yourself to go back to Allah. And first of all, try not to commit the sin. Try to stay away from as much as possible. If there's a place that you go to where that sin is committed, stay away from that place as much as possible. If there's maybe a certain type of food you like eating which is non-lawful, then try to stay away from that. Stay in good company. These are means of trying to stay away from. But the main thing is to try and train yourself. Every time you do something wrong, ask Allah forgiveness. Turn back to Allah. And inshallah, by doing that, slowly Allah will give you the ability to be able to stop doing that. But you have to remember that, look, we are human and sins are going to happen. But, we also have a responsibility to try our best to stay away from things as well. Okay, if someone's i'tikaf becomes invalid and they do qada, will that be of just that day? Yes. So if a person does i'tikaf and they break one day, then they have to do qada that one day. Okay, why can't we take Quranic verses which talk about Allah's attributes literally? What's wrong with anthropomorphism? Okay, good question. So the Quran basically talks about Allah, the hand of Allah. It talks about Allah becoming established on the throne. It talks about the eye of Allah, the face of Allah. So how do we understand these? Do we literally understand from this that Allah has a face? Do we literally understand that Allah has a hand and Allah has an eye? Yeah, how does it work? So you see, the problem with this is that in the Quran Allah also says there is nothing like Allah. Laysa kamithlihi shay. So we have to believe at the same time that Allah has a face, Allah has a hand, He's mentioned it about Himself, and at the same time He said there is nothing like Allah. So if you say that He has an eye, and like I have an eye or animals have eyes, then that's not acting upon the second verse. So this is why the scholars were in a bit of a dilemma of how they understand this. Firstly, this was the Sahaba's language. So the Sahaba's language was something which was natural to them. So they didn't need to go into these issues because they understood it like that. However, when the later people came that accepted Islam and they learnt Arabic, they became a bit confused with this because they weren't used to how Arabs say things. So this is where they started to question about what is the face of Allah. Does it have dimensions? Is it metaphorical? How does it work? Because in Arabic there's lots of metaphors as well for things. Like for example, if I say to you in English, give me your hand, then that basically does not mean like literal hand, it means help. So this is why the Arabs have that as well. So some of the scholars went and said this is metaphorical. Some of the scholars say no. Like someone came to Imam Malik and said, what does it mean that Allah is istawa al-arsh, is established on the throne? Does it mean He's sitting there? So Imam Malik said, look, we have to believe this ayah of the Quran, that He's established on the throne, whatever that means. Al-kayfiyya majhula, we don't know what it exactly refers to. How is He on the arsh? Because nowhere in the Quran does it say He's sitting. So you can't say sit. You can't say Allah is sitting on the throne, because then you're adding your extra interpretation which does not exist in the Quran. So this is why this is a big problem. So this has been a big problem in history between scholars, different groups have come out of this because of this positioning. What I would say is this: whatever the Quran says, you believe in it. Don't go into too many details about the description of Allah. Simple as that, and you'll be safe. Once you start trying to go and delving into too many descriptions, more than what the Sahaba discussed, then you're going to get confused. That's what I would say is the best thing. So this is why anthropomorphism, to believe that Allah is, this was a belief of the Jews, and this is a belief of the Christians, to believe there's an old man in the skies. That kind of belief is obviously not Islamic. So we have to believe whatever the Quran says, whatever the authentic narrations mention, that's what we believe. Okay. Hope that answers it. Alright, is health insurance allowed to duration of treatment you go to consult? 1st April. You insure, consultant 1st April 2016, you insure and treatment for the year insurance covers you. Again, this kind of question, health insurance, it requires you to speak to a scholar about the situation. For example, like there are, in this country, there's a lots of, possibilities for people to get free medical treatment. So, but it differs. There might be certain types of treatment which is hard to get to here because you got to wait on a long waiting list and it could affect your health. So in those kind of situations, some scholars have given permissibility for a person to take out such insurance that would cover them because they can't afford the treatment. And I know this is the case in the States as well, where America, they have to pay for their medical treatments, and in other countries as well. So for them, it works out cheaper. It's easier to maintain. Otherwise, if a person has to pay from their pocket, it's very expensive for a lot of treatments and they can't afford it, and they'll end up harming their health or even dying. So this all depends. Okay, what do you think of the argument that has the Aisha they married the Prophet in the teens, around 17 years old? This question, what age did the Aisha radiallahu anha marry the Prophet at? So the classical scholars are, this is a Sahih Hadith of Bukhari, that she was at the age of 6 when they married, and consummation was at the age of 9. So, and then there's other scholars who have come recently who have said that it's possible that there was an error in the dates, and she was actually at the age of 16 or 19, 18, 19 when they married. So the thing is, Quran doesn't mention about her age in any way, nor does it mention her name. Other narrations don't mention. There's only that one narration that's mentioned in Sahih Bukhari. So this is why this issue has come about. What I would say is this, and this is also mentioned by Dr. Jonathan Brown. He talks about this in a lot of detail. You can Google him, YouTube him, and you'll find his talk on Aisha radiallahu anha's age. What I would say is what he said is basically no one has ever brought this issue up all the way till modern day. Yeah, and there was big enemies of the Prophet ﷺ and Islam in the olden days. If it was such a big issue and if it was such a problem, then they would have brought something up. Yeah, they would have said, like the Bukhari text says, she was 6 years old when he married and 9 consummated. Then, how could he have done this? So no one's really talked about it until now, and all of a sudden now it's become a problem. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, we don't measure our society and make it the measure for every society in history, because that's incorrect. That is, every society has its own way of functioning. So ages in society when people get married, they all differ. So we can't really compare that. And thirdly, the reason why I think some people are trying to push for the 17-year-old thing is because they want to be apologetic and they want to try and stay away from what atheists are saying. Atheists are gonna, these people who are against Islam, they're gonna attack Islam, whether you talk about the Aisha Radhiyallahu issue or you talk about other issues. They'll try to find faults in Islam. So carry on, do your business, like Allah says to the Prophet sallallahu وَلَا تَسْمَعُنَّ مِنَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ أَذًا كَثِيرًا. So you'll hear from these people lots of harm, and you just وَإِن تَصْبِرُوا وَتَتَّقُوا, and you do have patience, you worship Allah, you be obedient to Allah, and Allah will take care of all them. Okay. What did your teachers at Karachi say about Hafiz ibn Taymiyyah? Okay, so Hafiz ibn Taymiyyah, generally my teachers would say good about him. One of my teachers mentioned that Sheikh Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, he was a very knowledgeable person. He made mistakes like any other scholar made mistakes. And the reason that he was singled out, his mistakes were singled out, because the kind of situation that he was in. So he was in a time where it was very volatile, and there were people, unfortunately, that were very jealous against him as well, and so they criticized him. So you get scholars who talk about him in a good way, in a bad way, and our scholars would say, look, take whatever good you can from him, and any big major mistakes that he's made that go against the major position in Islam, then you don't have to take him. That's what he would say. So I know there are scholars who on one side hard supporters of him, there's other scholars who are totally against him, even call him disbeliever, and there's scholars in the middle. Okay, what are the virtues of huruf muqatta'at? The virtues of huruf muqatta'at, there isn't anything authentic mentioned about reciting. Like sometimes some people have alif, lam, mim, ha, mim, qaf, yasin written down in their house. There isn't really anything authentic regarding reciting those or anything like that. It's part of the Quran, so if you read it with that virtue of his Quran, then for every letter you read, the Prophet ﷺ said, you get 10 rewards. Okay, Sheikh, are you voting for Corbyn in the election? If not, I will unsubscribe. Okay, first of all, am I going to be voting? That's a good question. So I don't know. I've never voted in my life. I haven't had a chance to vote, and I mentioned this in the other video that I made. So he seemed like a good guy to me. Why not? Why not vote for him again? But I don't know. I don't know all of his policies. I don't know. He might just like certain things that he might be talking about which interest me, but there might be lots of other things which go against what I stand for. So I don't know. I'll have to see. Okay, what do you? And don't unsubscribe, bro. Yeah, come on, man. You can't subscribe with me. Okay, what do you think about the silsilas like Qadri, Naqshbandi, Chishti, etc.? Okay, this is a good question. These tasawwuf silsilas. So basically, in the early days, in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, everyone tried to rectify themselves. Yeah, so this is called tazkiyah. The Quran talks about this. So you try to make yourself a better person. The faults that you have, the mistakes that you do, you try to find a way to rectify yourself. So this constant self-rectification or self-monitoring, this actually later on became more kind of formalized. So people began to formalize this and made it into like a regime. Yeah, so they kind of came out with certain methods that if you follow this protocol or these 5 points or these 10 points or these 15 points, then you can become a better person. So these slowly developed over the years, and they became into what is known as silsilas. So a silsila means a chain. So people began to find that certain these methods that were developed later on were very beneficial for them. And so later on, like one of them was taken by Junaid Baghdadi and then the Qadiri became the Qadiri Silsila, Abdul Qadir Jilani, and become the Qadiri Silsila. And then you have silsilas that go through other people as well, the Chishti Silsila, and you have the Naqshbandi Silsila. So these are all little chains of people in history who were the founders of these kind of methods. You can imagine them like companies who came up with a sort of kind of way of redeeming yourself. And so they came till today. So do you have to follow one of these? Not necessarily. You don't have to follow one of these. This is just something optional if you want to do. It's like, enrolling yourself for a diet, so, health diet. So if you follow this diet, these are the benefits. So you can follow them, or you don't have to follow them. So the main thing is to try and follow this what the Sahaba used to do. So as long as you're following what the Sahaba used to do, that's the main thing you should try and do. So if these silsilas are going against what the Sahaba used to do, then obviously it's problematic. Then we don't follow them, because there are some groups in the world, unfortunately, who do these strange things. They'll have like, you've probably seen some videos sometimes of some sheikh sitting there and some people throwing money at him and prostrating to him as well. So these kind of things, you got to be careful of who you're hanging around with, basically. So what the main thing is like the Sahaba, how they used to get benefit from the Prophet ﷺ and company. So stick with good company, that's the main thing. So these silsilas, as long as they conform with the teachings of Islam and they don't come out with things that are totally against Islam, then they're fine. Okay, it's hard to find a woman to marry in this country who has good character and deen. What tips would you give? Again, this is a hard question, bro, because it all depends. I mean, there are many women out there who are very good. Maybe you need to look in the right places. Yeah, and don't keep your aspirations or expectations too high. Yeah, bring them down a bit. Try to find out. Maybe you can ask your friends. Ask her if there's any sisters who are interested. Go to their families, talk to them, and like that. Networking with other people. You'll find there are good people out there. So remember, what you see, unfortunately, sometimes you see bad thing about women. So it does not mean just a few bad incidents, maybe 5, 10, 15 incidents in your life you've heard about women, and they've spoiled your image of women in this country, in the UK. So there's women out there who are very good, mashallah. Yeah, so always have good hopes, inshallah, and you'll find someone. But you have to look. Yeah, you have to look in the right places. You got to ask around. And you might go through like 10, 15, 20 proposals, and then you find the right one. So don't worry about it. Okay, is it prophetically recommended to marry a virgin? Is it prophetically recommended? Yes, this is actually a good question. So is it prophetically recommended for a man to marry a virgin woman? Not necessarily, no, because the Prophet ﷺ himself only married one virgin, Aisha radiallahu anha. All the other wives were non-virgins. So the hadith regarding this is to do with situation as well. So for some people, it differs. Virgin might be good for them, and for some people, it might be someone who's already previously married. Yeah, so it all differs from person to person, I would say. Yeah, so you look at that. Okay. Should we encourage females to attend the masjid? What I would say is this. We should encourage females to do good. That's the main thing. And as for masjid, they don't have to come to the masjid. It's not necessary for them. But if, like, for example, a masjid is active, if there's a masjid that's dead, basically nothing really happens there, there's no kind of community there, they don't really have talks for the youngsters in English, they don't cater for them, then it's pointless, I would say, encouraging anyone to take part in the masjid unless you're going to be doing something. For men, the ruling in the fiqh is that it's for them, it's considered wajib or sunnah mu'akkada, according to scholars. For women, it's considered to be permissible. And according to some, would be more permissible. But what I would say is this: if there is a masjid and that masjid has good activities, programs for youngsters, for men, for women, then you should encourage them to go. Yeah, for those events, encourage them to go, because that way they'll get in contact with the religion and the true teachings. Because sometimes, people, they learn from Facebook and they learn from WhatsApp, which is totally out of order, because all sorts of things are put up there, true things, false things. How do we understand hadith of people who got sick and Muhammad ordered them they should drink camel's urine? My question is about the violent had carried out on those people? Okay, good question. So basically, there's a narration where a group of people, they came to the Prophet ﷺ, they accepted Islam, and then what happened was they became very ill in Medina because of the environment. So the Prophet ﷺ told them to go and drink the camel's urine and the camel's milk, and that was like a medical detox for them. So they got better. What these people done was actually they killed the shepherd, and they stole the camels. So what happened was the Prophet ﷺ sent some companions after them. They got hold of them, brought them back, and they were killed. But the way they were killed was they were mutilated. So their nose was cut off and the eyes were burnt, and they were left to die in the desert. So what we basically say is this is not had. Yeah, so this is not called had. This is actually known as a siyasatan. So two things you have to understand here. First of all, there is no limit on what kind of penalty can be carried out on a person who like transgresses, does something really bad. But the second is that this particular incident was abrogated later on. So later on this issue was abrogated, the scholars say, and mutilation was totally forbidden. So sometimes what happens is there is a punishment that's done at the time of the Prophet ﷺ because of the situation. The situation was so volatile that anyone could just come and start abusing the rights of the Muslims, or even kill the Prophet ﷺ or anything. So there had to be like a punishment as an example, set an example. So this incident, according to the narrations, did occur, but we have to understand the conditions it occurred in, the context of it. So this was like a deterrent for other people not to commit this. And it's not a had, it's not a fixed penalty for people because it was abrogated later, the scholars say. There's a narration as well in Ibn Majah that la qawwada illa bisayf, that there's no death penalty except with a sword, meaning the dismemberment of the head. So mutilation is not allowed. Okay, how would you understand a certain hadith is mutawatir, aziz, gharib, hasan? Okay, have you studied usul hadith before? If I understand that, I can give a better answer. Okay, walaikum assalam. Is it mustahab to work out in Islam, keeping health? Yeah, good question. So is it mustahab, is it good to work out in Islam? Like, fitness, training, weightlifting, running, all that. So the main thing is it's necessary for a person to keep themselves away from harm. That's what is necessary. And it's encouraged for a person to stay healthy. So whatever way you can stay healthy, that's encouraged. The Sahaba's times, the reason you don't hear too much about exercise is because their lifestyle was very strenuous, and everything they used to do in their lives was a kind of workout for us. So the way they used to go for work, the walking they used to do to go to the mosque, going for battles, training for the battle, these were all workouts they used to do anyway. So that's why they were very fit people. As for us in our days now, because our lifestyles have changed and it's become difficult for us to maybe, it's just lifestyle becomes so easy. Go everywhere in the car, air conditioning, nice warm homes. So we don't need to do the hard work. So this is why for us, for some people, if the doctor says, look, you have to do exercise, otherwise you're going to harm your health, then it would be necessary for that person to do exercise. Okay, alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What's the best way to memorize ikhtilafat and difficult masail? Okay, this is a good question. So sometimes what happens is if you're studying fiqh, sometimes there may be 3 or 4 opinions regarding one particular issue. Like, for example, the issue of should you wash your hands when you wake up in the morning or not? So when you wake up in the morning, should you wash your hands before you do your wudu or not? So this is like a big ikhtilaf issue amongst the scholars. Yeah, that's one. Or for example, can you urinate in the direction of Makkah, in the direction of the Qibla? So there's like different opinions, 8 opinions that I know. The scholars have mentioned about this. Some say no, you can't absolutely. Some say yes, you can totally. Some say you can't put your front. Some say you can't put your back towards it. Some say indoors is okay, outdoors is not okay. So there's so many opinions regarding this. So that's an issue in itself. So how do you memorize these? What I would say is the way I memorize these kind of things is I use like a link kind of method. So I try to link up all these opinions in my head in some way. So maybe like if it's Imam Malik, then I have a symbol for Imam Malik in my head. If it's for Imam Shafi, then I'll have like a symbol for Imam Shafi in my head. And every time that symbol comes, I know this is the Shafi opinion, or the Hanbali opinion, or the Zahiri opinion, or the Hanafi opinion, or the Sahibain's opinion. That's how I kind of memorize. So it's all, or I would say it's all up to what you see. Okay. So you can try different methods. Some people just memorize it first time. It's not easy. Some people, it doesn't work like that. They have to have some sort of a method. And I find if you keep going over the Masail time and time again, it just sticks in your head. Yeah, you just know it inside out. Okay. What is your view on getting a mortgage in this country? In your view, around bank Islam? Okay, so I answered this question earlier. Islam rewards. So if you kind of go back to the recording, inshallah, when the record is later, because I did explain this. Generally, I mean, it's just to do with your situation. You speak to a scholar will be able to give you an answer. Okay, do you believe in jinn possessions? However, experience miracle? Okay, jinn possession. Do you believe in jinn possession? Yes, I believe in jinn possession. And this is something which there is a difference of opinion among scholars, the early scholars. There was a group called the Mu'tazila. The Mu'tazila were a group who kind of used their rational a lot to kind of explain things in Islam. And if it didn't fit with their logic and common sense and rational, they would dismiss it. This is generally how they used to look at things. So jinn possession and these kind of things, they dismissed it. Magic, jinn possession, etc. But the general majority of the Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, they used to believe in it, and this was something that can occur. And I've actually seen experiences where people have gone into these, possession states where they've spoken a different language totally from what they know, or even mentioned things that they couldn't have known, which is not possible for them. So either we're going to say it's a jinn possession, or we're going to have to come up with some other form of possession. Some aliens maybe are taking over their bodies, and I don't know. Okay, have you experienced a miracle? Miracle in Islam basically means something that goes against the norms of the laws of nature. So something that goes against the norms of the laws of nature, that's basically called a miracle. In that sense, I haven't, no. But if you mean a miracle as in like Allah's given me iman, and Allah's given me eyes to see, and Allah's given me ability to be able to eat and drink and talk, every day I experience miracles, alhamdulillah. But a miracle that is extraordinary event that goes against the laws of nature, the laws of science, then I haven't really experienced that. And it's not necessary to experience these kind of things. The scholars actually say a good statement. They say that al-istiqama fi din fawqa alf karama. That being steadfast on your religion is actually beyond, it's higher, it's more better than 1,000 miracles. Because a miracle is something not because of your ability, it's just something that happened. But staying on the deen is something which is hard. Okay, is reading Quran on yourself with intention of healing yourself like a disease allowed? Healing, so if a person does read Quran, it can be used, because the Quran says وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاءٌ, that we send down in the Quran that which is shifa, so shifa of the spirit and shifa of the body as well. So scholars from the early days have been the Sahaba. There's an incident where a Sahabi went and he recited Surah Fatiha on a man who was stung by a scorpion or a snake, and he got better, and the Prophet ﷺ permitted it. So it's permitted. What's your view on student loans? I explained student loans before, so if you watch the video again, and it's basically, it goes down to you speaking to a scholar about your situation, and he'll be able to give you a specific answer. Is it wajib to pray salah? Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Is it wajib to pray salah with jama'ah, specifically in a masjid? I pray salah with jama'ah in a musalla. Yeah. So they say in a jama'ah. Jama'ah is the main thing, whether it's at home, in the mosque. But it's more better to pray in the mosque. It's fadila. So in the mosque there's more virtue, more reward. But the praying actually in the jama'ah is the wajib thing. Okay, so I am doing usul hadith and mishkat al-masabih and mustalahat al-hadith. Okay, so one thing you have to remember about usul hadith is this. Usul hadith, sometimes some people study usul hadith, but they study it totally disconnected from hadith itself. So when they study like mishkat or sihah sitta, they have no connection of what they're studying usul hadith, how it has any relevance to what they're studying. Sometimes that happens, and I've seen that happen a lot in places where there's no kind of, student cannot see any link between usul hadith and the hadith they're studying. It's like you're just studying usul hadith for the sake of it. Like some places they only teach usul fiqh for the sake of it. So you can't see that usul fiqh being applied in fiqh. So basically, what you have to understand about usul, inshallah, I'm going to be doing an online course on usul fiqh, usul hadith. I've done an usul fiqh one, which is you can get recordings, about 28 recordings of usul fiqh on the Hanafi madhab. But usul hadith, this is a very interesting topic because you have to understand many different things about hadith. So Imam Hakim, for example, was one of the earliest scholars who organized hadith in this way. He makes it into 50 categories. So he talks about 50 categories of hadith, and that's a good book to look at. But what I would say is that's a bit difficult maybe for a beginner. But you have to remember there's something called the transmission of the hadith, and there's something called a chain of a hadith. Yeah, they're two different things. So transmission basically is how many groups of people have passed down that hadith. This is called transmission. This determines whether the hadith is mutawatir or not. And there's something called the chain, the links between student and teacher. That is called the sanad of the hadith. And that determines whether the hadith itself is authentic, unauthentic, hasan, and all of those categories in there. Yeah, so that's basically, so it would obviously have to require, going into a bit of detail with regards to usul hadith. So I mean, for a normal person, how would you understand that then? So if you look at hadith, you would have to know the date of birth and the death of every narrator. You would have to know what all the major scholars have said about these narrators. So let's say there's 5 narrators in a hadith. Yeah, there's a hadith and there's 5 narrators that narrate the hadith. You would have to know the date of birth of each narrator, when each narrator died. You'd have to know what each scholar has said about this narrator. Did his memory ever go weak? Did he ever commit an open sin? You would have to know whether he ever met with his teacher, whether they lived in the same city or not. You would have to know if this hadith contradicts another chain. So there's so many things you got to look at in trying to determine whether hadith is valid or not. So that's why it's not as easy as it looks. So for example, if I opened a book of hadith to you, let's say if I opened Musnad Imam Ahmad and I gave you a chain and he has 5 people in there, and I said to you, okay, you have to determine to me whether this hadith is authentic or not, you'd find it very hard. Yeah, but obviously if you know the tools, if you knew where to look and what you have to look for, then it becomes very easy. That's what usul hadith is all about. So usul hadith just gives you the explanation of the terminology. That's all it does. Okay, what's a sahih hadith, what's a sahih li ghayrihi, what's a hasan li zatihi, hasan li ghayrihi, and da'if hadith, and mursal and muttasil and munqati, all these hadith. Just gives you the terminology. It doesn't give you the technique of trying to. That technique, where do you learn that? You learn that in takhassus fil hadith. Yeah, you learn that in takhassus fil hadith. In other words, specializing in the hadith. That's where you learn that. Hope that answers that. Okay. What is the Mufti's view with regards to taking bay'at to a sheikh? Okay, assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh. Is it necessary to take bay'at? So first, what is bay'ah? So bay'ah, basically, if you're talking about spiritual bay'ah, is where a person goes to a sheikh and makes a promise to that sheikh that they will listen to their advice and they will act upon it. That's what bay'ah is. So you're like going to someone and you say then, look, I've got a really bad problem with controlling my gaze. I've got a really bad problem with backbiting. I've got a really bad problem praying my salat late. I need help. So you think that you go to the sheikh and you'll say to him, if you give me some advice, I promise I will stick to that. That's what bay'ah is all about. So is this necessary or not? This isn't necessary. What's necessary is to be a good Muslim. So if you take like a method to become a good Muslim, okay, if you take a method to become a good Muslim, that is something which obviously is good. Yeah, it's good to do that. So for example, let's say, some people have a jar at home and they say, every time I backbite, I'm going to put £10 in this jar. That's a good method. That's a good thing, that is. But it's not necessary for everyone to do, because it's helping you to stop committing sins. So giving bay'ah to a sheikh is not necessary. No scholar mentioned that it's necessary. What I would say is you look at your situation. So if you think that you need to give bay'ah and this is the only way you're going to get closer to Allah, and it's the only way you can stop committing sins, then it might be a good idea for you. Other people might not, it's better for them not to. What I would say about giving bay'ah to a sheikh, you don't want it to become a trend. So sometimes what happens is you get people out there who give bay'ah to sheikhs just because he's a popular celebrity sheikh, and everyone just wants to, mention that, oh, I've given bay'ah to this person. That's wrong, guys. That's just, showing off, and you don't want that. And the main thing is company. So the company of a sheikh, staying in the company of a good person, try to do that, inshallah. Yeah. Okay. The person who is very skinny, how shall he handle his eating food? Would it not be a waste, like, to eat over much food? If a person's skinny, eating food, look, there's different levels of eating food. You can eat food just to basically, get rid of your hunger. A few morsels will do that. You can eat food to keep yourself strong. So sometimes if you eat, like, let's say, a few morsels and you do it continuously for a few days, you'll become very weak. You won't be able to work hard. So eat enough so that you've got enough energy for the whole day, so you can work and do ibadah and stuff. And a person who eats too much, this is something which is disliked. So again, try to keep a balance of how much you eat. Not just how much you eat, what you eat as well. Healthy, not just halal food, but healthy food as well. Yeah, so overeating is something that's disliked in Islam, unless the scholars say, for example, you're a guest at someone's house and someone forces you to eat. So the scholars say then you're allowed to eat. Yeah, because you don't want to upset them as well. So, like, for example, once Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, the Prophet ﷺ gave him some milk and he said, drink it. And he drank it. And then he said, drink it. And he drank it. And he said, drank it so much that he said, O Messenger of Allah, I can't drink anymore. There's no more space left inside of me to drink. Okay, shout out to Islam Rewards. Love your channel and keep up the good work. Okay, well, I haven't checked it out, but I'll have a check, inshallah. What is the verdict of praying Quran from a Quran app without wudu? Will a screen cover be buried or not? Okay, so this is a good question. I'm gonna finish in about 5 minutes now. So if you've got any other questions, put them up. Otherwise, I'm gonna inshallah finish. So if you have basically touching the Quran, this is something which majority of the scholars say you can't do without wudu. What about mobile phone then? So you have mobile phone. Are you touching the Quran or are you not? So some scholars are on the opinion that if the screen on the mobile phone is the Quran, then you can touch the phone but you can't touch the screen. Some say no, you can't touch the whole phone. Some say no, when you touch the screen, you're allowed to even touch the screen because there's a barrier between the Quran and your fingers. It's like a glass. So you're not touching the words. So because there's two opinions here regarding this, what I would say is this, or several opinions. What I would say is this: the best thing to do is that try to be in the state of wudu when you're touching the screen of the Quran. If you can't, let's say you're in a situation where you can't, and if you don't open the Quran, you won't be able to read the Quran. You won't benefit from the Quran. Then in that case, then I would say, then it's fine. Then act upon the other opinion. Sometimes, like, you're on a journey somewhere on the motorway, 2-3 hour journey, and you don't have wudu, and in that time you could have spent reading Quran. So because there's possibility, scholars have given possibility, then yeah, you can read it. Okay, touch the Quran. What foods did the Prophet like eating? He used to like eating butternut squash. He used to like eating meat sometimes. He used to like eating sawiq, which is like a wheat kind of drink. Various foods. Are you allowed? You can actually read up on a book called Prophetic Medicines by Ibn Qayyim. Prophetic Medicines by Ibn Qayyim. Read in there. He's got like a list of foods. Are you allowed to read along with the Quran recitation coming out of a speaker, or do you have to remain silent? Are you allowed to read along with the Imam in Salat whispering? Are you allowed to read Quran with someone's reading? Yes or no? What the Quran says is you should listen attentively. But let's say you want to practice recitation. I wouldn't see any problem with practicing. So there's like a YouTube one and you listen to the Quran and you're reading after him to get your tajweed right. Don't see anything wrong with that. It's good. In Salat, should you read behind the Imam? So there's a difference of opinions. Some scholars, like the Hanafis and the Malikis, they say you can't read behind the Imam if he's reading aloud. And Shafis and the Hanbalis say no, you can read behind him, Surah Fatiha. And some say you can read in the silent Salats. Yeah, so what I would say, depending on what you follow, that would be the answer. What you don't want to happen is confuse the Imam. So by reciting, you're disturbing other people, and reciting, you don't want to do that. Are you comfortable with questions asking about your views on other scholars? I don't really, because if I don't know the scholar, I can't really say anything about him. But if I've read about him, if I know a lot about him, I've spoke about him in detail, then I don't mind. So it all depends. Okay, what is the wisdom of the numbers of rakats in the prayer, like 2 rakats in the morning? We don't know what the wisdom is. Yeah, that's the truth. We don't know, and these are certain things in Islam which we don't know. We just follow it, just like, alif lam mim. What does that mean? We don't know, so we just follow it. So these are known as umur ta'abudi, ritual practices that we just follow without knowing the exact ruling for. Alright, guys. Anything else? No other questions? Alright, guys. So, take care, guys. And remain dua as well. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.